Hi everyone, it's me again. And today we're going to be talking about what makes the TikTok content creator Molly Rutter so controversial. As well, I want to unpack just kind of the general commentary around Molly and the main points of criticism based on her various scandals. Before we get into that, the links, source, ways to support the channel all down below, including Patreon, Amazon, all that kind of fun stuff. Channel members, the whole nine. Thank you to my current members and patrons. Names on the screen as well. Shout out to my homie Noor for the research doc today, link down below. As well, the first link in the description will be a link to Operation Olive Branch's master sheet where you can donate to a multitude of GoFundMes for people in Gaza and just the Palestinian effort regardless. So, 3 parts of the video today. Part 1, who is Molly Rutter? Part 2, the controversies, and part 3, the public response. Now, let's just make it quick and get right into the video. So, part 1, who is Molly Rutter? Molly Rutter is a 32-year-old TikTok creator with over 180,000 followers, and based on what is available on her page, she has been uploading on the platform since around 2022. Molly began posting decorating content, but what really made her blow up was content in relation to her experiences dating in Buffalo, New York. She also hosts a podcast called Hey, So This Is Actually Insane, and I actually never looked it up. I want to see how she's doing on YouTube if it's there. So the Hey, So This Is Actually Insane podcast has only 646 subscribers and hasn't uploaded in 2 months. I think. Let me check. I actually lied. 9 days ago. I can't read. Yeah, last episode of season 1. You can watch that if you want. 961 views as of recording this video. So clearly, a lot of the attention is on the TikTok specifically. Prior to making content, her full-time job was actually being a teacher who often taught English as a second language. After teaching abroad, Molly worked in an elementary school in Buffalo, New York as her last teaching position. Now, I totally understand someone who is making content online while teaching, why you would not want to do both of those things at the same time. Because while you technically can, like in my experience too, they can't really tell you 100% that you can't do it. They will make any sort of weird formality or technicality or make up something half the time about somebody getting mad about something just to discourage you from doing it, despite the fact that they still pay you 2 pennies and a ham sandwich to teach for a year. Molly's content on TikTok was definitely also hard to swing in the education space, given the content being related to dating and kind of her sex life and stuff like that. The content on face value is somewhat innocent in the sense that it relays what is often expected on dates and just kind of how they ended up going. And the thing that I was most critical of in my teaching internships and in teachers college, and kind of a big part of why I'm not a teacher right now, is that I felt that I was often not allowed to be a person. And that was actually in a disciplinary meeting, which I'm not going to get into the lore on that because, not disciplinary. It wasn't disciplinary because it was, is this true? And then I was like, no. But anyway, when they were kind of pushing me, and then it kind of devolved into pushing me about social media and stuff like that, and I was kind of prying on what the issue was. A big thing I said the biggest issue that you're having is that I'm a person outside of the practice. Teachers are held to this inhumane standard of practice. It genuinely follows you in every aspect of your life, and you're in this constant state of prayer. It gets actually way worse than most people think it is. At least where I'm from anyway. It's something that needs to change, I think, in order to have actual retention and not have a 50% turnover in the first 5 years. Anyway, I'm not gonna get into that whole thing necessarily, but with Molly specifically, the content is actually quite controversial, and she starts getting into everything a lot deeper later as her social media blew up, and I can kind of understand how she would have landed in some hot water. And as she transitioned out of teaching into doing social media full time, the content began to get more controversial, and I find her nature towards her audience became more combative. Also, when criticized, Molly is very quick to come for her audience, and the push and pull kind of led to a point where a lot of the views seem to be hate watching. Even with this podcast, let me see something. Okay, see, the podcast, the issue is that, so when I was looking, I was going to say the like-dislike ratio on the podcast is that there's so little views. It just has 27 likes and no dislikes. But the thing is, when you read the comments, most of it is people calling out that it seems like Molly's story is just a copy of When Harry Met Sally or something like that. Anyway, that's a random episode I picked. I got a new therapist, episode 9, if any of you are wondering. But let's get into exactly what makes her controversial and what has led to this audience relationship in Part 2. I'm going to keep doing that forever, I feel like. Same thing as I keep saying, let's get right into the news. Part 2, the controversy. Now, a lot of people began to notice Molly Rutter outside of her community when a creator named Brittany Pristine on TikTok commented on her view to audience ratio, comparing it to Clinton Klein, who was Brooke Schofield. Girl, why can't I say her name? Schofield? Whatever. That lady's ex-boyfriend, who also like makes music, and when he sings, he like goes like this. Some go as far as, and as well as Brittany Pristine as well, to claim that she makes rage bait content and has built an audience of hate watchers.
Actually, like a TikTok phenomenon that I've really been wanting to talk about. I think that it is so wild when you see a creator on TikTok who has such a combative relationship with their audience. I just made a video on Molly Rutter, and she has like, you know, like an off-brand dating diary series, and like she has an incredibly combative audience. Like her audience, generally speaking, while they enjoy her content, they don't really agree with any of her decisions and like what she does. So while her audience may like be intrigued by what she's doing, they don't like support her. You know what I mean? Another good example would be like Clinton Kane. Like people are interested, they're gonna watch his videos, but they're not gonna like it. They're not going to physically, actively like it because they don't like it. Abby Hanna was another good example before she went into like her Christian era, because people in that community will just like anything that is in relation to that community. I made that video about Molly. She blocked me, so obviously I went to one of my alt accounts and looked at her page. And someone had commented and been like, hey, like, have you ever considered using your notes app? And she, in a hilarious move, I will say, screen recorded her writing in her notes app and then posted it. I thought I was chronically online. And when I looked, that video has about 50,000 views, which is crazy. And 300 likes. That's nuts. As someone who's worked in social media, if I was like looking to work with an influencer and I saw those numbers, I'd be like, oh, they bought their views. I just think that it's a result of like not being able to take criticism. And like she just gets so defensive if anyone gives her a critique, whether it's like in a mean tone or a nice tone. Like she does not take feedback and she doesn't apply it. And so that has created this really like tense and like negative relationship with her audience. And it's a phenomenon that I've seen a lot, kind of exclusively on TikTok.
There are 4 main controversies that fed into this like kind of poor relationship with the audience to the content ratio, whatever, which is TMI about dates plus a date with a 20-year-old who was going to do her taxes. 2, allegedly catfishing on Hinge and Minecraft. Part 3, clickbait, or controversy 3 rather, clickbaiting, physical violence. And 4 is just kind of Molly's politics and the Molly Gets Political series. Well, let's get into the dating the 20-year-old taxes thing. So on April 14th, 2024, Molly Rutter posted a video about her first date in Buffalo and how they were going to go get some beer at a dog-friendly bar and do her taxes. The guy that she was seeing, that she was going to see was 23 and she is 31 years old. And she was complaining on TikTok that he ghosted. And then updates the same TikTok being like, oh, he didn't ghost, he just fell asleep, even though I said I wouldn't answer him because I was sleeping. So we're already kind of seeing like a bit of a weird, like, I don't want to say entitlement, but maybe double standard, and just the way that she seems to approach these conversations. And this comes through a lot more as we kind of progress into her.
I think I have a date tomorrow, my first date in Buffalo. Homeboy is gonna help me do my taxes. We're gonna get some beer. Okay, sounds fun. And he ghosted. The last time we texted was 3 p.m. Plan was to meet up at 5 or 6 p.m. when I was done with my nap. So we texted at 3 when I woke up from my nap, and then I texted him again at 4:45 saying I was getting in the shower to get ready. And he hasn't answered me. And it's now like 5:30, so obviously we're not going on this date. This would have been my first date, being back in the States, and my first date in a while, actually. I don't think I've been on a date since like November. Genuinely excited about this date. He looked cute. We had good conversation. I hate dating in this generation. You know, maybe it was my mistake because he was very young. I'm 32 years old and he was 23. And he did a very 23-year-old thing. And to be fair though, anyone who's even my age or older could still do the exact same thing. Exactly, Bo. Exactly. Plot twist. Homeboy just fell asleep. So now, while I was waiting for him, I made other plans to meet up with Morgan and bring my dogs to a dog-friendly bar. He's still gonna meet me there.
Then there was a long segment just about her walking her dogs. And then she has an axe. She got that. Well, it's not Pat too. It's not Michaela, but she definitely has like a upstate New York accent, maybe? I don't know. I hear it, whatever it is. And then Molly updates that she did, in fact, actually get ghosted, and then just, like, more clips of dogs. Molly rationalized in another TikTok why he ghosted, because she was confused by him calling her a pet name. Like, she said something, and he responded with, okay, love. And then she went on a whole tangent about it. She then goes on about him being self-deprecating and all these random icks that she got, including the date, the fact that he ghosted because the date occupied space in her mind. Occupying space in her mind is something that she so strangely weaponizes as a concept a lot. And I have never thought to ever bring up the fact that someone thinks about something as an issue or as something to fixate on. So I just thought that was really interesting, personally, just as a concept, because it's like, it's not necessarily someone else's responsibility that you're happening to think about something. You could argue more about, like, your time, but I'm not sure. I just think it's very strange. The video ends with just a conversation about Molly missing her recently deceased, 7 years ago, I think she said, deceased mother. Molly then came on TikTok addressing the attention she was getting and just kind of like how she felt about getting all the comments on the TikTok. She then made a video, said that she's not engaging with any of the comments and just that she is going to continue making content about her cats and 2 dogs, and that dating content is like too much pressure and is too difficult or something along that line.
About time I responded to all of the attention I've gotten from my recent tax date video. I have a lot I could say. I have a lot of thoughts. But no, I'm actually not going to respond to any of that. I'm just going to resume my regularly scheduled content, which is about my babies, Bubba and Baby Bo and Monty. Lately, my entire personality online has been my 3 animals. And to everyone else who's been following me before that video went viral, I'll give you a Monty update. And if you don't know what a Monty update is, you just gotta check my videos. I'm not gonna explain. But the Monty update is that he's been much better.
On April 22nd, kind of also just in general said that she was going to keep it pushing. I'll put a little clip in now because I just realized how I explained that is not making any sense. Girl, again, there's the 2 sides of the afterwork coin. There's like the Lameo Goss queen, and then there's like the 0 brain cells left. I sound like that dial-up noise. On April 22nd, Molly actually makes a video responding to the comments where she just patronizes people on the grounds of not appreciating non-constructive comments, and only does so by just like putting a bunch of text on the screen with like a video of her dogs in the background. Molly later responds to comments from someone requesting more dating content, said that she had received too much hatred from the comment section. On May 22nd, she said that she actually is convinced to make more dating content, and then began making more content the next day about somebody she was referring to as the green flag guy. Spoiler, she got friend zoned, and he asked specifically to not be talked about on TikTok. Again, another common theme in this whole ordeal. People then start commenting that Molly is really similar to somebody from Baby Reindeer. I don't know what that is. I don't care that much. I just know it pissed her off. And then Molly again went off about haters and how she does not deserve criticism. She then goes out with another man in his early 20s who she calls dangly earrings. Molly then makes another video about age gap relationships, saying that there are lots of horrible men that are her age, and she keeps rehashing her date with a 23-year-old who was supposed to do her taxes, saying that influencers are held to impossible accountability standards, as well as saying to get over it to a bunch of things in reference to that date.
And you know what is something I've really been contemplating lately? Is whether or not I should tell people the age of who I'm dating. Because we know the age thing is probably the most controversial thing in my dating life. But let me tell you something. I've dated a wide range of ages on the apps, and you can encounter a really nice guy or a really not so nice guy at many different ages. And I know that it is much more likely I'm going to find someone at my stage of life who is closer to my age. I know that, people. I know that. That's why I'm very open to dating people my age on the apps. Okay? I'm very careful nowadays about how I vet guys before I meet them. And there are plenty of men that are mature and similar enough to me that we could have a positive relationship even if they're younger than me. Okay? And there's plenty of guys who are my age or older who are still deadbeats, who are still terrible men that I would never want to be with. All I'm trying to do, people, is open up my opportunities to as many different types of men as possible. That's all I'm doing. And if they're a consenting adult and so am I, why is that so triggering for people? Because I was never going to let him see my personal tax information. Okay? And then the guy ended up standing me up on the date itself. Like, literally, we had plans, we were meeting up. I updated him that I was like on my way and walking to the safe. And he told me he was on his way as well. Then I arrived there and he was like 15 minutes late. So I was texting him where he was at and he said he was 5 minutes away. 5 minutes away turned into hours away and homeboy never showed up. I know, I say homeboy. Everyone's gonna make fun of me for that. Get over it. Yes, I didn't like that he was calling me love and pet names before we even met. Get over it. I still stand by that. It still gives me the ick when a guy calls me a pet name before we've met. If that doesn't give you the ick, fantastic. Date people who say that. I won't. The beauty about humanity is that we're all different people. We all have different preferences. If we all had the same preferences, we'd be fighting over who we date on a daily basis. Variety is the spice of life, babe. Yes, I know. Oh my God, I'm so ironic. I'm calling you babe, but I don't like when people call me babe before I meet them. Babe, human beings are full of contradictions as well.
Now, because again, I go through this constantly. I've talked about this, and I think it's interesting because Molly Rutter's personality is like a really toned down version of a mix of Amberlynn Reed and Marissa Matthews. Now, I have videos on both of those people if you don't know who I'm talking about, but Amberlynn Reed is like very patronizing to the audience, very lectury, but she's kind of more dialed back. And the Marissa Matthews is a specific like fixation on specific interactions and comments. But I would say Molly's like a more chill version of both of them, which makes sense because some people still actually consume Molly's content, I think, as on face value. So this ends the controversy specific to the dates, and we can move into the actual like catfishing in Minecraft Hinge profile. So Molly Rutter has a whole ass snark Reddit, by the way, where someone leaked the entirety of Molly's Hinge profile. Now, I'm not sure how much of this I want to include because I also think that was a bit strange of a thing to do, but essentially there were complaints that the profile was over-curated. Snarkers were also claiming that the photos were of a younger, thinner, prettier looking, I guess, like, compared to now is the insinuation, Molly Rutter. My tummy just made a noise. I hope it didn't pick up on the mic. Girl, anyway. Molly addressed this in a video, positioning it as a PSA for dating content creators, where she accidentally found her snark Reddit, and she said that she doesn't know what to do anymore and doesn't feel safe using dating apps. So here's my tea with this woman, okay? I don't understand how you get 180,000 followers on TikTok, and then you seem to be on a pedestal. Actually, a lot of pedestalization. Is that a term? Maybe. My tummy won't stop making noises either. This is a train wreck. But anyway, she seems to be like, oh, I'm responsible for all of my audience's interactions. I am forefronting this type of content. People are willing to take advice from me, despite the fact that like I act very immaturely in how I conduct myself online. I have a oh God, was that a Jordy reference? I have like I don't have any videos with millions of views because nobody cares about me, and that's chill and slay, and I love that. But I don't know, I do okay enough, tens of thousands per video, right? And I would never think that I'm at the head of something, that I have advice to give people. I would never think that my content is necessarily extremely impactful or hyper unique or has this ability to change the way that people perceive themselves or anything around them. And if it does for any of you, that slays, and I love that. But a lot of it is just to kind of share my piece, and we're talking about like the education content, stuff like that, just to kind of bring something that might be of use to you. But I think a lot of times there's this like heaviness in the weight of content and the weight of what is produced that can kind of make it reduce the enjoyability and the just general passiveness that can be of value in art and in production and of expression. That was a little deeper than I wanted, but anyway, Molly makes a second TikTok where she says she would like to go on the apps again, but she does not feel safe and she does not consent to people outside of the dating apps like seeing her profile and feels so violated, despite the fact that she constantly makes content about men, making them somewhat anonymous, but the men, it's still obvious enough that the men that she's dating, when they see them, they know it's them. Continues to rant where she says she's never even considered the amount of body fat that she has at a given time while putting the photos up. And she asks if someone dyes their hair or if they're less tan, if they're catfishing. She says she never want to be like someone on Reddit and that they catfish on social media as social justice warriors trying to protect other people from Molly catfishing.
Let's just say you're right. Even if you are right, who cares? Like, do you really think I care about having a few photos on a dating app where I have less body fat than I have now? Do you really think that that's like a concern of mine? Genuinely, I'm wondering. Because I think so highly of myself that so many other things cross my mind when I think about how I'm presenting myself to the dating world. Like in those photos where I have less body fat, I'm thinking, oh my God, I look so cute. I love my outfit. I look like I'm having so much fun and I'm there with my dogs. I want to represent that on my dating profile. And I'll be damned if I ever go on a date with someone who sees a few photos where I'm thinner and then sees me in person and thinks, oh my God, she's a catfish. I never want to date her again. Oh my God, if I ever encounter someone like that, please, I hope they run for the hills. And who knows, maybe I already have encountered people like that. Do you have any idea how many times I've gone on dates where someone looks different in person than their photos? This happens all the time. I've said this before. So often, men look so much better in person than they do in their photos. And do you think those people are catfishing me then? What about men who are clean shaven in photos with short hair, but in person they have a beard and long hair? Are they catfishing? What about people who show pictures of themselves in the summertime where they have more of a suntan, more freckles on their face, but then you go on a date with them in the winter? Are they catfishing you? Someone who has a different hair color, are they catfishing? No? No, you don't consider that catfishing, but you consider it times where you have more or less body fat. Do you really think it crosses my mind when I'm putting together my dating profile? Do you really think I'm thinking, I better make sure all my photos show exactly the correct amount of body fat that I have right now? Do you really think I care about that? That that's a concern of mine? I hope to God I never encounter people in real life like those nameless, faceless Reddit people. Because those are not the people I want to surround myself with. Beauty is more than skin deep. Beauty is more than just the amount of body fat you have on. Bodies fluctuate, appearances change. What matters is how you are on the inside. I would rather be a catfish for showing more or less body fat than to be a nameless, faceless coward on Reddit criticizing someone else's body. I'd rather be that kind of catfish than to be the kind of catfish you are on Reddit, where you're pretending to be some high and mighty justice warrior. We better protect all these people out there so they don't date Molly because, oh my gosh, wait till they see how much body fat she has on her. My God!
I know this, and I know how I'm reading it doesn't sound like it makes a lot of sense. A big part of it is that Homegirl's line of thinking doesn't make a lot of sense either in this context. Again, a lot of that importance, right? And it's like the sort of okay for me but not the type beat. So then on September 6th, Molly went back on the dating apps, announced this on TikTok. The Snark Reddit made a compilation about Molly posting content about men's Hinge profiles and other dating profiles. I was also going to mention that because it feels obvious. There is one specifically where she refers to a guy catfishing her and just fully posts the Hinge profile pictures on TikTok to put him on blast. Are people not putting you on blast for someone who appears differently, allegedly? Like, I don't really think it's that. I don't think it's catfish, and then catfish is way more serious than that. But if we're going on the premise of what they're going for, presenting yourself differently on these dates that to a certain degree at a point are starting to feel disingenuous and for content, to then talk about these people and occasionally quote unquote blast them for your own profit and benefit while embarrassing. Right. Next, Molly shared text of the catfish, as I stated, and then put him on blast, and with the pictures and everything. That ends the sort of catfish part, because there's also complaints too about there was this guy cutting trees by her house and she started filming him and just kind of like, oh, oogling? I don't know, girl. Anyway, you have an idea what I mean. And that was without his consent, and then she posted it on her big platform again, right? She respects her platform's volume when she can use it to have a self-importance and feel like she can leverage her own moral values and the level of morality that she perceives herself as having. But then the volume of the platform doesn't matter when it's putting other people in a position where they feel like they're uncomfortable. That's the main thesis I'm getting, methinks. So now we get into the clickbaiting physical violence concept. So trigger warning for that. If you are uncomfortable, the video is chaptered. So this happened on October 9th, 2024. And it started with a 2-part Get Ready With Me. Both videos deleted, but they are available on Reddit and it is linked in the document. I'll play a little bit of it. The Reddit re-uploaded it at 2x speed, so I had to slow it down in my editor. So if it's a little bit like weird, that's why.
It's pretty. All right, there's the hair and makeup. Let's get dressed. You're gonna hate it. Okay, here's the fit. So many people told me not to wear this, but I just don't care. I feel so cute. I feel comfy and sexy. Like, I'm sorry. Are you going to tell me that this doesn't look cute? Are you gonna try to tell me that? I feel so confident. I feel like Beyonce, standing in front of my air conditioner waiting for my Uber. It was the scariest day of my life.
So the first video was just Molly describing the guy that she's seeing and calling him a grungy looking older man and wanted to move away from her typical type of guy. Again, describing him already as a kind of intimidating persona was concerning to a lot of people. There's another video posted with a text on screen saying, "Get ready with me to go on the scariest date of my life," with like a siren and stuff, like a little siren emoji. Most of the video is just discussing doing makeup, where she mentions linking the makeup that she's wearing. So now we also have like an affiliate, like money making thing besides just the TikTok views. And I have to say this because I hate to be that bitch, but like, and I say this when my blush is literally orange, but that's on purpose. Is she looking a little orange? I just think the way she does her makeup is kind of strange. I don't know if it's like a certain type of look. Not my tea. The only reason I say this is because when she lifts her bangs at one point, and she just got bronzer, but then nothing like here, and then eyebrows, and I'm like, But I also think like when she like does her hair and stuff, it always looks cutesy. It looks very like button nosy. So maybe that's the goal. I don't know. I'm just being a meanie because I want to sometimes, you know. Everything is normal until the very end. She says that it's a scariest date I've ever been on, and then there's like flashing lights, what looks like sirens, and her hands over her mouth, and she got like a busted looking eye type beat, and then like cut lips and stuff. In the caption of the video, she did say that she was safe though, but still, I don't know. The presentation of that was definitely not good. The next day, Molly posted another video after people were pointing out that they may have seen her at this like Fright Fest thing, and that's what she was clickbaiting. And the video starts with the ending of the previous TikTok, and the date from hell and the scariest date that she ever been on was a private tour of this thing in New York called Fright World. Now, here's my most base take, and everyone's gonna get so mad at me, and I'm actually terrified. I don't like Halloween, and I think it's just because it gives millennial to me too much. And something I don't like millennial people, like I'm not saying that even remotely. It's just, it gives that sort of like hyper-capitalist, synthetic, you know, a lot of it is just for like show on social media or something. I don't know. There's just a certain inauthenticity I feel about Halloween that I'm just not into. Because like Christmas is about like family and stuff, right? So I can get all up into the Mariah Carey of it all, you know? But I've just never understood Halloween. I've never liked it. Even when I was like trick-or-treating as a kid, I was like, it's weird for me to show up at someone's house, you know? That's just my thing, if anyone ever asked me, because a lot of people think I'd be really into Halloween for whatever reason, but I'm just really not. And also because, like, stuff like this, too, happens all the time. Like, people will, like, you know, make Halloween costumes and, like, scare the shit out of people. It's like, I don't know, being scared makes me enraged. When someone, like, jump scares me, I want to deck them in Minecraft. Like, I just don't understand the appeal. I really don't. Scary movies annoy me, okay? You want to watch someone get, like, psychologically tortured? Not my tea. I'm going to go watch... I was going to say go watch Breaking Bad as if that's not the same thing. KT, but that's not the... I don't know. You're going to go watch someone get, like, tortured or, like, whatever, turn into, like, some sort of weird creature is not how the substance works. And, like, it's like, I'm going to go play Hello Kitty Island Adventure, personally. I also have an anxiety disorder, if that gives you any idea about why I might be like this. But 17 hours after the Fright World video came out, all 3 videos were deleted, and Molly came out with this, like, response video. She immediately points out that she took the video down. So she's starting with, "You're mad at me for no reason," which is a common theme here. Goes on to say that the video had unintended negative consequences. Check the also always learning and open to grow box of the influencer apology bingo card. And on October 13th, she made like an actual like apology TikTok. More or less the same thing, just added the random detail about how you need multiple drafts because nobody's perfect on the first try or something.
Everyone, I want to get on here and address the recent videos I posted and have since taken down. For some context, I went to a haunted house to film content and dress up with a makeup look that was spooky, Halloween inspired to match the theme of this zombie date experience. That said, I've read your comments and I understand that there were people who felt that my makeup look, which included a black eye and a busted lip, was highlighting domestic violence and physical abuse, which was absolutely not my intention at all. I always act under the premise that even people with good intentions, their actions and their behaviors and their words can have unintended negative consequences on others. I do not feel it would be right to profit off of content that highlights something as serious as domestic violence and physical abuse. And so that is why I have removed those videos. For those who don't know me, or maybe you haven't been following me very long, I absolutely love Halloween. It's a big part of who I am. Everything from dressing up to going to haunted houses. I'm just a huge lover of anything Halloween and fall, which is why I even went forward to make this content in the first place. I'm always open to learning and growing. And so I do appreciate so many of you bringing this to my attention. And I sincerely hope to continue to create on this platform in a way that is positive and respectful of everyone.
She also... this is a no for me. I lied. I said, I'm starting to draw way too many parallels between Molly and Amber Lynn, from the guilt tripping to the, if other people do it, why is it not okay when I do it? Which is very true. She said, like, there's lots of scary videos. People, like, make these kind of, like, clickbaity type things all the time, whatever. Again, I think I'm particularly non-sympathetic because I just think Halloween's cringe in general. And I know that might make me, like, the biggest, like, party pooper hater on earth, but it is what it is. And I'm going to live my life. Finally, we get to the politics of it all. And as in just Molly's politic videos in general. So I'm sure you know that there was a U.S. federal election early in November, about a month ago. And Molly made a point to make her views seen on Miss TikTok. She captions the video, "The only dating update that matters right now," where Molly says the result of the election will show you, as in I presume the people who voted for Donald Trump just based on context, at the expense of us, the reality of their choices. Then she continues by connecting people talking about her catfish photos and that people who are fixating on that at this time live in a different reality than her. And the fact that they can occupy space in their minds, we're back here again. I'm playing with my rings, my bad. Anyway, the fact that it can occupy space in your mind, like it's like, oh, you have different priorities than me. What's that quote from Jaden Smith? It's like, I want to talk about the politics and the social state of the world or something like that. Like, she's like that too. It's like, two things can exist at once. And, you know, again, to a certain degree, I think there's the element of, like, wanting distraction. Because there's a lot of people who feel like they're not in control of the environment around them. Such as, for example, somebody in Miss Arkansas. And I know I said that wrong. It's a joke. It's Arkansas. I know that. But anyway, somebody, let's say, like, deep south Arkansas. Or, like, South Carolina, ? Or what's another one of them states? Alabama. Who would be, let's say, a Democrat. It's like, or even vice versa to a certain degree. There's always, like, you know, California Republicans, for example. There are a lot of areas because of the voting system where people feel like their vote kind of just doesn't really matter. It's kind of just, like, for nothing. And they feel like a helplessness. But a lot of people can't just, like, pick up and move either, right? That's not really possible financially for a lot of people. Their lives are rooted there. It's just not something that's easy to do, right? And when we're talking about, like, people like Democrats, specifically people who are more liberal, it's a particularly scary reality for them, especially women, marginalized people, LGBTQIA plus people, and to a degree the Palestinian people as well, even though the Democratic government was not serving much more of a bright future in that regard. There's still a frightening nature of that unknown as well, I think. And to be like, how dare you think about anything else is like, not the tea that you think it is, girl. I really don't know how else to say. Like, not that, you did not read them. You just gave actually all I'm thinking about while I'm pretending to think about the political state, social state of the world, or whatever James Smith said, is the fact that you're still looking at my photos.
If at any point in the past 24 hours you have commented on my TikTok complaining about your opinion about my catfishing dating profile, like seriously, all I can say is very, very different types of people. Because if you have the mental capacity to care about a TikToker's dating profile photos, if that's something that has space to occupy your brain, wow.
Because when I started watching this video, I was not thinking about that at all. as a concept. Now I'm playing with a lip liner, but now I wasn't thinking about that as the concept at all. Like, why is that something that even matters? Continues by saying that she has no room in her life for a straight man unless they overcompensate. She says that she wants to stay in America out of spite and that her counselor was telling her the value of doing things out of spite. That's a bit strange, IMO. Don't know how else to say that. I mentioned that kind of vibe to my counselor and she was like, that's unhealthy. So, on November 8th, Molly updates on what content's going to be, calling her old content trivial, and that she's currently obsessively consuming political content. And it's like, she's talking about how she doesn't care what people think and how this change is authentic and it doesn't matter because she knows and she wants to be involved in politics. Now, girl, you're 31 years old. That's the reason why people are not jiving well with this girl. Because it's like, I'm a white woman, hear me roar core, if that makes sense. It's like, you literally thought about how societal impacts and the process and how detrimental it'll be for people for like a day. And then you're like, oh, all of you who don't think exactly like me are morally corrupt. Consider that a lot of people maybe don't have the energy because they have been thinking about this their whole lives. There's a lot of nuance and layers to these types of things. Or that the fact that you could have even afforded to be like that your whole life. To live like that your whole life. Marginalized people who are in like low economic socioeconomic class, people who are, unhoused. There's just so many variations of people who that's been their entire existence, their whole lives, and now you're patronizing people. On November 8th, Molly updates us on what the content is going to be, with also including the concept of stocking up on Plan Bs, reading books at the library, and reading works, as well as only promoting goods for marginalized groups, specifically Black women. Now, I've talked about this before. I find when people like white, middle class-ish or something, whatever, creators who have never thought about politics ever, their first like virtue signal is always Black women. And I think that's kind of gross. I really don't know. And I don't want it to sound like I think supporting Black women and reading works from Black women is a bad thing. But again, Homegirl's 31, and the fact that this is all clicking in now is a bit weird. And I know, of course, that we should applaud even just getting to it at all. And I would totally be doing that if she wasn't also going, and you're not like me, so you suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, that patronizing mix makes me just go, girl, did Black women exist in the peripheral before? Because also, like, why is this like the thing we're bringing up? There's like that meme of like the solo Black poly hijabi amputee or whatever, where it's like the woke off. That's what it's feeling like. Because like for me, for example, it's like I've referenced works from Black women, I've referenced works from Indigenous people, I've referenced work from, white people, I've referenced work from whatever, and I'm never just like, oh, sit down and let's listen to the thoughts of a Black woman. I'm like, no, I'm just going to show the importance and value of this in context to what I'm talking about, because they are people that exist in this space in the same way that I would. It's savior complexy. Next, Molly responds to the comments saying that, talking about how she's like never done this before, which I was just talking about. She says she does not care about the nature of the content and that people can care about and have different feelings about different things. Molly responds to a comment regarding never having a public stance on Israel-Palestine. Molly says that she, to herself, was critical of Kamala Harris' stance on genocide, but then was like, I don't know, again. But then she's like, I can endorse and support a candidate as a lesser of two evils, but endorsing and supporting is beyond a tolerating on two evils. Anyway, another comment came in regarding the Halloween videos and like, oh, you're doing all this virtue signaling now and you are literally clickbaiting DV, which is tea and accurate. Molly says that she's taken accountability and that she's not a perfect person. Same conversation as before, so clearly we've gotten nowhere. Finally, Molly responds to allegations about it being performative, and she said she would be doing herself and others in the country a disservice if she did not use her platform for good. Doing a full 180 in a day and then being like, I can think what I want. It's just so many, like, it just gives somebody who has spent too much time on the internet and is just trying to, like, check all these boxes to just be the most, like, mainstream successful as possible. Like, that, I don't really know how else to And that's where that inauthenticity aspect's coming in with how people are perceiving it, I think. Like, disservice to others in the country, it's like, girl, chill. Chill. Then Molly makes a Molly Gets Political video where she puts her Cameo to 50% off to donate the proceeds to a organization called Burning Books Buffalo. Molly had to respond to people asking about needing to donate through her. Said that it worked when she had her Halloween cameos off and that it might help people and it gives them something in return, which I actually do think to a degree is somewhat fair. This is not an uncommon thing to do. Somebody did buy a cameo and leaked it on the Snark Reddit, where Molly was really raunchy, talked about hooking up with a guy, and then he apparently ghosted her after telling Molly that he was uncomfortable with a clip of his dog in her TikToks.
Like, yes, sign me up. And then guess what? Homeboy got freaked out because of that few second clip of his dog in my TikTok. And by the way, he knew all about my TikTok. He talked about it at length before we even met. And then I asked about it in person. I said, like, how do you feel about my TikTok? The fact that I post about my dating. I, like, interrogated this guy about my TikTok, basically, to make sure he was comfortable with it. And then what? I have a few seconds of his dog, and he was like, it made me really uncomfortable. It made me feel weird. My friends are recognizing it, and they're showing it to me. And I'm like, what in the fuck? So I was very apologetic. And I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I thought you said you were okay with this. Like, I never would have done that if I thought you would have been against it. Like, I really didn't mean to make you feel uncomfortable. I won't post about you again. Done. Then he basically gave me the cold shoulder and posted me.
Again, alluding to the fact that she really doesn't care about the consent of the other party in these, like, dating TikToks, which just shows that, like, again, the change is not really there, because if you feel like you've lost your consent potentially in the scope of the American political scene that's going on right now, but then you're, like, mocking the concept of consent for the men in your TikToks, and I'm not a defending straight man type of bitch, okay? Like, let's keep it a stack, like, but it's just, even regardless of who it is, it just contradicts. Molly also showed how much she made from the TikToks or from the cameos rather that she promoted on TikTok in that same series. But with that, I think we can get to part 3 with the public perception. So part 3, public perception. For the last section, I just want to go through the sort of main points of criticism from these main controversies that Molly's gone through. So we're talking about the dating content. The thing that I noticed the most was obviously the recording aspects of the date without consent while fixating on consent for herself, which it's sort of giving this idea I've noticed in how she's a woman. So obviously, like, the concepts of, like, potential violence and a lot of things like that are far higher for her than the straight male counterparts. But it's as if saying because of those potential dangers that they have not earned the right of consent in the same way that she has, which is a very unhealthy dynamic to bring to any sort of potential relationship at all. Also describes the men in detail in unflattering ways, in ways that are just genuinely embarrassing for someone who dared just try to go on a date with somebody in the same way that she's doing with them. But then when people talk about her disparagingly in any way on the Reddit, they're horrible bullies who are catfishing as social justice warriors. Being a teacher but talking about dating and sex life. Now, again, I think it's hard to tackle that conversation, especially in the United States, without starting to get into the, like, you talk about sexuality in a classroom with the kids and you're turning them into and it's a very slippery slope type of conversation to have, and it's based on the professional guidelines laid out by your board and or your state. I almost said province, Canada pilled, but anyway. And that's like a very varying conversation. I think I have insight in, but my content was also less socially controversial in the context of specifically, like, things that are not allowed to be spoken about. But at the same time, I have more, like, political and social opinions on people that often my students were interacting with directly, such as the likes of Sneeko and Andrew Tate and XQC and those types of characters. So my context and my insight on this is not the greatest because I'm not really sure how to format it. But maybe eventually if someone asks me something in a stream or something, I can, like, formulate a thought then. Obviously the bad response to the pushing back in comments, in the way that you criticize all these men you go out with, you criticize your comment section, you criticize the state of politics, you criticize the way that people perceive your change in your political views, or your public political standing, rather. Again, it's just, I think most of these are just hypocrisy part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We get to the catfishing on Hinge in Minecraft. way more patronizing, a lot of holier than thou, connecting something as important to as the election, which she says if you're not thinking about, you're a horrible person, while clearly laying out that she's not thinking about it, and that she's thinking about her Hinge photos instead, and that these are taking up space in her mind or something like that. Consent for Molly, but not for the men on Hinge. I've gone through this now 6 times, I feel like. And calling Heel virtue signaling for pointing out that these catfishing things, but also just assuming the intentions of anyone who talks about her, while constantly asking for the benefit of the doubt of the entire audience around her. Clickbaiting physical violence in and of itself should be obvious. You're supposed to advocate for women's safety in dating, and you're making a mockery of the fact that these things could happen. And the fact that you were linking makeup in the video gives the vibe that you're trying to get the sales up for those things. Said she's being held to this high standard, as I mentioned. Again, the standard is don't pretend to be beaten up on a date, which should have been obvious. You're literally 30 years old. Played ignorant ties into my point that I just brought before. Girl, you're 31 years old. And just a lot more kind of moral superiority and just mocking of people around her. Political videos have that inflated self-importance cranked up to max. You're not going to save the political state of the world, especially with the relationship with the audience that you have. In order to have the impact, I feel like, on someone's politics, in order to have the impact on the kind of social dynamic that you have between somebody, you need to have established an honest and level relationship with your audience. Instead, now you might even be just pushing people away by just making them feel like shit. And this is something that I criticize leftists for constantly. This sort of like, somebody who is Republican is not trustworthy. Somebody can be stupid if they're conservative. Like, if they're conservative, they're just stupid, and all this kind of stuff. It's like, well, you're creating a further divide and a separation in something that by nature has to be a joint effort. We're a social species. We're supposed to live together. We're supposed to work together. Capitalism as a concept has kind of devolved that and diluted that to a very superficial set of a very tight circle that is truly often for someone's own self-benefit, but that's a whole other conversation. Linking back to the Hinge and the catfishing just like gagged me. Like, that was crazy to me. Like, what are you fucking doing? And then lecturing to people like she's talking to children, while also being like, you need to think the same way as me. Respectfully. Even, so the thing is that she taught elementary school. I think she's a 3rd grade teacher. I taught 7th graders and 8th graders. I still would not have talked to them like that. I still would not have talked down to them like that. Like, that's the level of like where I'm watching it and I'm like, girl, shut up. Like, and the worst part, I'm feeling like that, and I share for more or less. Obviously, mine are more. I guess maybe not. I don't want to say extreme, but like more in depth, maybe. And I'm like, girl, if I didn't have these beliefs in the deep foundations of my soul, it's like I would not be. If I was, let's say, what's it called, an enlightened centrist, this would not be the lady who would be swaying me to the left, is all I'm going to say. With this, I'm actually going to end off here. Link, source, and ways to support the channel all down below, including Nora's beautiful research document, the link to Operation Olive Branch as well. Thank you again to my current members and patrons. I love y'all deeply. More content on the way. I think I've run out of ideas now, though. I can't remember if I have any more in the pipeline. I'll have to check. I have my big surprise December rhetoric video, but that's like a whole other thing, and I haven't started that yet. Anyways, I hope y'all have an amazing day. Love you dearly, and I'll see you when I see you. Bye.
I was like, you know that part in Batman where... No, I don't know that part in Batman. Have you ever seen Barbie Swan Lake? Do you think I come home from a long day of work at the salon to turn on fucking Batman? No, I'm turning on the Jeffree Star and Kat Von D drama from 2016. I don't come home and watch Batman.